Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our class on the Nectar of Devotion, a summary study. This is a book written by ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And we have been discussing about this book for quite some time now. Already 14 classes we have discussed. In today's class, which is the 15th class, we will complete our discussion on chapter number 12. So that is why you see part number 2 we have mentioned on this slide. And we will also complete our discussion on the new chapter called chapter 13. And the title of chapter 13 is 5 Potent Forms of Devotional Service. Let us begin by doing Mangalacharan. And for Mangalacharan, Rakesh Prabhu, who is the devotee whom we have assigned this service today? I think we have Vanaja Mataji.
Vanaja Mataji.
Okay, Vanaja Mataji, would you be willing to chant the Mangalacharan prayers which you see on the screen? I see you are already in the class.
I will do it next week because I'm having some problem with the mic.
Okay, no problem. Any other devotee who would like to volunteer for chanting the Mangalacharan prayers?
May I, Prabhu?
Okay, Rakesh Prabhu, please go ahead.
Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guruna Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagada Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitansha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrashbhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nicely recited the Mangalacharan prayers. Thanks a lot. Now we move to the next item of our program, which is the summary of our previous class. And I would like to invite His Grace Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu, who belongs to Bangalore. And Prabhuji is a wonderful devotee and disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. Jivan Prabhu, would you be able to lead us to the summary of previous class?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. First of all, Hare Krishna to all the participants of this class, and also Hare Krishna to Prabhuji. I would like to thank first our Shiksha Guru Keshav Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to make the presentation of the last class recap. Actually, we are in the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and under which we are now holding classes on 64 limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti. Before the class, we are actually going into a subject. We also, Prabhuji gave a very good version of the complete content, the complete shortened content of the Nectar of Devotion in the form of a good slide, starting with Uttama Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti, 3 Adhikaris, 4 Sukritinas, and Bhakti is in the middle. Finally, the 64 limbs of Bhakti. We are now in the, actually, up to the last class, we have covered up to limb number 53. So in the last class, we have covered from limb number 54 to 61. I will now go through the one by one. Limb number 54. That is, limb number 54 is called Shastra, Hearing Bhakti scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, Upanishads. Actually, the Upanishad means here we can include Bhagavad Gita also. Bhagavad Gita is called Gita Upanishad. Vedanta, etc. as defined by Madhvacharya. Actually, there are two references from there are two references. One from Srimad, one from this one, Skanda Purana, and the other is from this Srimad Bhagavatam. The Skanda Purana, it says, glorious are those people who hear and read the Vaishnava scriptures. Krishna is pleased with them, and those who worship the Vaishnava scriptures in their homes become free of all sin and are praised by the by the Devatas. Lord Narayana himself lives in the house where Vaishnava scriptures are written and kept. And also in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also substantiating. It says, Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who derives satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. This is about limb number 54. Then next we come to limb number 55, which is called Mathuraya. This means servicing in Mathura, servicing Mathura and other holy places. Mathura is a holy place, and not only serving Mathura and other holy places. Here there are two references substantiating this aspect. One from Varaha Purana and second is from the Brahmanda Purana. One who is attracted to places other than Mathura wanders in the material world, birth after birth. This is from Varaha Purana. And in Brahmanda Purana, the bliss of prema, which is rarely attained even by serving in all the places in the three worlds, is achieved simply by touching the land of Mathura. This is the glorification from Brahmanda Purana. Also, Rupa Goswami also is glorifying about the hearing about remembering, glorifying, desiring, seeing, visiting, touching, taking shelter, and serving in the land of Mathura. He says the fulfills the desires of all human beings. This is about the glorification. Next one is the limb number 56, Vaishnava Seva, service to devotees. Here the reference is from Padma Purana and Srimad Bhagavatam and also Skanda Purana. In Padma Purana, this is the conversation between Lord Shiva and Parvati. Lord Shiva says, of all the types of worship, worship of Vishnu is supreme and worship of his devotees is even superior to that. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, servicing a Vaishnava helps one develop bhava for the Lord's lotus feet and also vanquishes one's material miseries. In also in Skanda Purana, glorification also is done in Skanda Purana. There it is mentioned, and a person whose body is marked with tilak, limbs smeared with gopi chandan, tulasi mantari on head, seeing such a person, when seeing such a person destroys all sins. Also in Adi Purana, Lord says that his real devotees are those who are the devotees of his devotees. Prabhu also gave also his realization, then he had met a Vaishnava acharya from ISKCON, with whom he had a good association. He was also sharing his experience with us. Then next comes the limb number 57, Vaibhav Mahotsava, observing festivals as per one's ability. This here, one who performs a festival for the temple of the Lord experiences for eternity a festival on the planet of the Lord. This is about that. Next comes the limb number 58, Urja Daro. This means observing vows of Kartik month. Here the references are majorly from Padma Purana. It is mentioned in Padma Purana, just as Damodara is affectionate to his devotees, the Damodara month is also an affectionate to the devotee. Even a little service performed during this month yields great results. And also by observing Damodara Vrata, that is in Mathura, especially in Mathura, even once a devotee can easily achieve Uttama Bhakti, that is Lord's real gift, which the Lord awards very rarely. Normally, Uttama Bhakti is awarded very rarely. It is because once suppose somebody attains Uttama Bhakti and does the good development, he can also control the Lord. So it is given only to a person who does this in Mathura. The Lord may offer liberation or material enjoyment to normally the Lord awards liberation or material enjoyment to his devotee who worships him elsewhere. So this is a special privilege in the Mathura. If suppose somebody does this in Mathura, he gets a special privilege there. Then limb number 59, observing, that is Janma Dina Yatra, observing Lord's appearance days, observing of Lord's appearance days. Reference, this is from Bhavishyottara Purana. The devotee says, O Janardana, tell us the day Mother Devaki gave birth to you, and we will perform a festival on that day. We surrender unto you, and you will be pleased with that festival. This is a sort of a prayer by the devotee. And he shows his eagerness to celebrate the Lord's birthday. Limb number 60. Sri Murti Angri Sevane Pritihi. Attachment to serving the deity's lotus feet. Here the reference is from Adi Purana. It is stated in Adi Purana by Lord that he will award bhakti and never liberation to those who always chant his holy name and make Lord's service as their goal. Srila Prabhupada explains his commentary in Nectar of Devotion. He explains about the difference between mukti and liberation. Mukti means liberation from material contamination, means when liberated, one does not have to take birth in the material world again. That is, he is free from lack pain. Second thing is the impersonalist desire to merge into the spiritual existence to end their individual existence. But according to Srimad Bhagavatam, mukti is only the beginning of one's becoming situated in his normal condition. The normal condition of every living entity is to be engaged in the devout service of the Lord. Also, Prabhuji in his class explained about a person who is suffering from disease, a person who is free from disease, and also a person who is healthy. To explain, a person who is affected by lack is a person who is diseased. A person free from this thing is a person who is liberated, and a person who has got the bhakti is a person, healthy person. Next comes the limb number 61. See Bhagavata Artha Martha Ashwado, referencing Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, here, there's a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, and he explained nicely about the ballad of the Prabhuji explained nicely about the thing. The verse, actually, the meaning, I just read out the meaning. Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedas. Emanated from Sukadeva's mouth, it has become even more tasteful. Release the nectarian juice of Srimad Bhagavatam constantly over expert and thoughtful devotees. Prabhuji also nicely explained about the Kalpataru, Galitam Palam, what it stands for. Kalpataru means the desire fulfilling tree, which is compared to the Veda. I don't want to go into the details. Prabhuji has nicely explained. In all the words, Kalpataru, Galitam Palam, there are two meanings. Both the things were explained. Then Amrita also explained, and also explained, Prabhuji explained about there were two Bhagavatams. That I will read. Bhagavata means related to Bhagavan. Devotee is sometimes called Bhagavatam. Book related to Bhakti of Lord also is called Bhagavatam. To relish book Bhagavatam, one must hear from person Bhagavatam. And also Shukamukha also was nicely explained. Also Prabhuji gave an explanation of Bhagavatam, Rasam, Alayam, Rasika. All this, because all these things have been explained in detail by Prabhuji, It was it's a very nice from Srimad Bhagavatam in the first chapter, it's the beginning of the Bhagavatam itself. And I thank Prabhuji once again for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation. I also thank all the participants for giving a patient hearing. In case if I have committed any sort of a mistake, I feel I request Prabhuji to correct me. I again thank the Prabhuji and all the participants for the patient hearing. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeevan Prabhuji. You very nicely explained all the points. Almost covered, I think, all the points that we touched in the previous class. So thanks a lot. I hope the summary by Jeevan Prabhu was useful to recap the previous class. Now let us proceed further with our today's class. And today I will actually skip some of these slides which I have been discussing in the past. But I will like to mention on this slide where we actually are in our course today. So we started our discussion on chapter 12 in the previous class. We have covered almost 75% of that. We will cover the balance 25% today. And on top of it, we will discuss the fresh chapter, chapter number 13, the title of which is 5 Potent Forms of Devotional Service. And this is the summary slide, which I think Jeevan Prabhu also gave a very brief overview in the beginning of the summary he mentioned. I will skip for today's class. I will skip this slide in view of time, but I hope the devotees attending the program, attending this class have understood at least if I'm going to ask anyone, then hope they should be able to tell me what is Uttama Bhakti, definition of Uttama Bhakti, what is definition of Sadhan Bhakti, what is definition of Vedhi Sadhan Bhakti, why there are three adhikaris, what is the difference between adhikaris and sukritinas, what does it mean by when it says Bhakti is independent, and then we are already discussing the 64 limbs of Vedic Bhakti. So these aspects you should be able to explain to someone, or most importantly your own self, what exactly are the definitions of these items. We are going to discuss Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti in our later classes. So let us not go too much into detail on those issues. Now we will continue with our today's class with the 61st limb. The 61st limb, most of it we had covered in our previous class, which was Sri Bhagavad Artha Aswado. And we had covered this Sri Bhagavad Artha Aswado by making a reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, verse number 3, where we had a very elaborate verse, Nigam Kalpatharor, Galitam Phalam, and so on. So we have already discussed that. We will not go into that. But after that reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, there is one more reference given, which is from the second canto, first chapter, 9th verse. And in this particular reference, what is being highlighted here is that the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, who is Shukdev Goswami himself. So in this verse, we come to know what Shukdev Goswami himself is telling about his experience of learning Bhagavatam. What he's saying, he's actually addressing Parikshit Maharaj. And while addressing Parikshit Maharaj, he's saying, "O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses." So what does this verse means? In this verse, Shukdev Goswami is saying is, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. What it means is that there's a little speciality about when Shukdev Goswami took birth. He was already a grown-up person. He was already a grown-up person when he took birth. And when he took birth, he was already realized in the Brahman realization. Brahman realization means the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord, which is the Brahmajyoti aspect. He was already realized into that. What does it mean is, like we studied in our previous class, impersonal or Brahman realization means that we do not have any anarthas, we do not have any bad tendencies remaining in our heart. And bad tendencies we have been discussing again and again: lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. In short, we call it LAGPIE, LAGPIE: lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. So Shukdev Goswami, when he took birth, he was already Brahman realized. He had no lust, no anger, no greed, no pride, no illusion, no envy, nothing. So that's what it means. I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Then he says, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord. Delineation means narration. When somebody explains the Leela of Lord Krishna. So he's saying, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. So who is described by enlightened verses? What it means is, so one name of Lord Krishna is Uttam Shlok. Uttam means best and Shlok means verses. So one who is described by choicest of poetry. So in poetry also there are grades. There are grades of poetry, means in some poetry we use really very choicest of ornaments, alankars, to explain the nature of the Lord, beauty of the Lord, his pastimes, etc., etc. That is why he is known as Uttam Shlok. So here Shukdev Goswami is saying that although I was already Brahman realized, but I was still attracted when Srimad Bhagavatam was narrated to me. I was attracted very much to the Leelas of the Lord. So the conclusion is, the pastimes of the Lord are sweeter than realization of Brahman. So Brahman realization is also not an ordinary realization. It's not a very it's an exalted stage in a life of a transcendentalist, one who is a spiritualist, who is aspiring for transcendental happiness, etc. Brahman realization is already a very advanced level of realization. But to such a person, when the pastimes of the Lord were narrated, they were sounding even more sweeter. They were sounding very sweet to some person like that. So that is what it means. Bhagavat Arth Aswado. Aswado means tasting. Artha means meaning. Bhagavat means Sri Bhagavat means Srimad Bhagavatam. So meaning and conclusions and the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is tasty, it is sweet. So that is why it is written here, pastimes of the Lord are sweeter than realization of Brahman. And Shukdev Goswami is proving this point by giving his own example. Who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam, he's giving this point by speaking his own example. So this was another reference which we did not cover in the previous class, and that completes the discussion on limb number 61 as discussed and described by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu. Now we move to the next limb, and this limb is Sa Jatiye Ashaya Snigdha Shri Bhagavat Bhakta Sango. A very long name, as you can see, but we will break it down into small words so that the meaning of each of these words is very clear to you, and then you can translate the whole phrase into a proper word, into a proper sentence. Sajatiya. Sajatiya means like-minded. So jati we generally understand from a famous or popular understanding of the word jati is belonging to the same caste. But here jati means like-minded, having same orientation, same inclination, same tastes, and so on. So association of like-minded. And snigdha, snigdha means ashaya snigdha. So snigdha here means affectionate. Shri Bhagavat Bhakta Sango. Sang means association. Bhagavat Bhakt means devotees of the Lord. So the full phrase here in Sanskrit actually is translated as association of like-minded affectionate devotees. Affectionate is one criteria, like-minded is another criteria. So association of like-minded affectionate devotees. And this is being discussed in two verses in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 228 and 229. There are two references, one from Srimad Bhagavatam and one from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. So what is the reference from Srimad Bhagavatam? It says, association of a devotee, even for a moment, is more valuable than attaining heaven or liberation. What to speak of any other kind of worldly happiness? So here in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is being the glorification of devotee association is being mentioned here. That devotee association, even for a moment, only for a small period of time, is more valuable than what? Attaining heaven, Swarga. And who attains Swarga? Who is aspiring for Swarga? Those people who have karmic tendencies, who have karmi tendencies, result of karma. So in Karma Kand, there are certain havans, there are certain yagyas which the person can perform, and the objective of performing those yagya is to attain Swarga, to attain heaven. And then or liberation. So liberation means impersonal liberation. That is merging into the impersonal bright Brahman, bright light like Brahman. And this is a result of Gyan. So who is aspiring for liberation or mukti? Those who are Gyanis. Here Gyanis means devotees who are more inclined to study and read the impersonal understanding of the Vedic literature known as Upanishads. So if you read Upanishads, you will find the narration in Upanishads are very much on the are not very clear, are somehow you would say you can derive different meanings from those Upanishadic verses. So when these Gyanis study these Upanishadic verses, they tend to derive this meaning that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually an impersonal Brahman. So their aspiration is to merge into those impersonal Jyoti, Brahma Jyoti. So that is why it is mentioned here liberation as a result of Gyan. So association of devotee is more valuable than attaining heaven or attaining liberation, which is mukti. Then what to speak of any other kind of worldly happiness? So we cannot compare association of devotees with any other kind of worldly happiness, when it is much better than attaining heaven or even mukti, which is not also a very small achievement in terms of transcendental achievement. Then another reference comes from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. Here there is an analogy given. So what is that analogy? The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman. So let us understand this part first. So what this verse is trying to say, that for a man, any attachment in this world is of cannot be compared to the attachment a man feels when he attaches with a woman. So and vice versa. So a woman when she attaches with a man, or when she has some association with a man, there is no other association which is joyful to a woman than this particular thing. So this is the meaning of the first line. And then and even more from attachment to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. Now what it means is that, okay, the best possible attachment or infatuation or bondage a person can feel, or a man can feel, when he attaches or associates with a woman. But even more infatuation and bondage a man feels when he attaches with another man who is actually in fellowship, or who is fond of women. So what it's trying to say is that uh, direct association of women is less attaching compared to associating with some men who are actually attached to women. So attachment to a stri sangi is much more powerful or much more causing of bondage than attaching to a stri herself, like that. So so why this example is given? This example is being given that by in compared to the direct association of a devotee with the Lord, it is much more powerful to attach or associate with the devotee of the Lord. So direct association with the Lord is less powerful compared to an association of the devotee of the Lord. So that is how this example has been given from Srimad Bhagavatam. Sorry, this is not from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. It is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. And this example is being given by Srila Jiva Goswami when he is writing commentary to this verse that is mentioned in Bhakti Samrat Sindhu. Now let us see one more example. Now this is coming actually from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya, the another analogy is given. One attains the qualities of the person with whom one associates, just as a crystal takes up the color of the object next to it. Now, interestingly, this example is being given by Hiranyakashipu to his son Prahlad. So when Hiranyakashipu understands that his son Prahlad is going to the school, but in school he's mainly talking about devotional service. He's mainly talking about subject matter of bhakti. So he thought to himself, Hiranyakashipu thought to himself that maybe my son is associating with some devotee of Lord Vishnu privately, in secretly. And then in order to explain to Prahlad, in order to coach Prahlad, in order to guide Prahlad, he gives this example. He says, one attains the qualities of the person with whom one associates. And then analogy is also given by Hiranyakashipu. He says, just as a crystal takes up the color of the object next to it. So if you have a transparent crystal and you put that crystal on someone who is wearing green color, so the crystal also appear to emanate green kind of appearance. So that is what the example Hiranyakashipu is given to Prahlad. So although the example is given by someone who is of demoniac inclination, but the principle still applies even to spiritual, to those people who are of spiritual inclination. So that is why it is mentioned as contagious association. So association is contagious. If we maximize our association with the devotees of the Lord, their character, their qualities actually rub upon our own character, our own qualities. Now, sometimes people ask, how do I forego anger? How do I relinquish enviousness? How do I develop more service attitude? So the simple answer is identify someone around you who is more inclined to seva. Identify someone around you who is more uh, inclined for bhakti principles. Identify someone around you who is very less envious, and start associating with that person. Slowly and gradually, you will acquire those qualities in your own heart, in your own character. Then Srila Prabhupada also gives another example. This example does not come in commentary of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or any of the verses that Srila Rupa Goswami is mentioning. This is the example coming from Srila Prabhupada in his commentary in Nectar of Devotion. He's saying, if a man is potent and a woman is not diseased, then by conjugation, there will be conception. Similarly, if a recipient and deliverer of spiritual knowledge are sincere and bona fide, there will be good results. So, in the association, what happens is, if the receiver, if the recipient of that association is sincere and he has no malified intention, he really sincerely want to advance in devotional service, and at the same time, a person who is actually he's associating with, he is also bona fide, he is also having no other malified intentions in the heart, then by such association, by such company, the results will be very good. Similarly, like when a man is potent and a woman is not diseased, then by conjugation there will be conception. So similarly, if the recipient and deliverer of spiritual knowledge are sincere and bona fide, certainly bhakti is going to sprout in the heart of the recipient. So that is the point Srila Prabhupada is making in the commentary. Now you can see a little glimpse of how this Vaishnav association looks like, where you will see there's a senior devotee there, and you will find maybe there are various degrees of senior devotees, advanced devotees, and so on. And in this association, uh, the topics that are discussed are only about Krishna, his devotees, service of Lord Krishna, and so on. So when we come across in this association, uh, we really feel inspired to advance in our own devotional life and so on. Now, would like to mention to the devotees who are attending these programs that the kind of association arrangement we are having in this program is primarily virtual. So one might think that if this is a virtual association, will this have any potential? Is it necessary to have a face-to-face association only, or virtual association, does it have any potency, any value or not? So in let me clarify on that. So virtual association is also a way, a proper or a bona fide way of associating with other devotees. So that is also acceptable. But with compared to virtual association, if we take face-to-face association, if we take physical association, that is even more powerful, because in that association you not only discuss various topics, but you also tend to feel the body language of the devotee. You tend to feel much more closer to the devotee. You can engage with the devotee in a much more personal way, and so on. So I would also request the devotees who are participating in this program to find opportunities around them where they can actually have more face-to-face or personal association of devotees. Now, since many of the devotees joining this program are from various geographies of the world, so they may have to endeavor on their own to find some Vaishnava association where actually they can go and relish the sweetness of such associations. So that is why it is known as Sajatiye Ashaya Snigdha Shri Bhagavat Bhakta Sango. So when you go to that personal association, face-to-face association, that affection part, you can certainly feel in the behavior of the senior devotee whom you are going to associate with, and you will feel the warmth and the care that actually comes with such association. So that has to be experienced. I cannot explain enough about it, because something which is worth experiencing has limited uh, the words have limited capability to give that experience or transfer that experience. So it has to be experienced. That is why I'm saying that uh, try to find some facility where you can have face-to-face association. Now moving to limb number 63, the second last limb of the whole list, and this is titled as Shri Nam Samkirtanam, which means chanting of Lord's holy names. And you can see 5 verses Srila Rupa Goswami is dedicating to give explanation about Shri Nam Samkirtanam. References are from Srimad Bhagavatam, Adi Puran, and Padma Puran. So let us see what is the reference from Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. It is saying whether one is a karmi who is aspiring for fruitive results, or whether one is a jnani aspiring to become one with the Supreme, or one is a yogi aspiring for mystic perfections, or one is a bhakta aspiring to serve the Lord. One can achieve all perfection simply by Nam Kirtan. One can achieve all perfection simply by Nam Kirtan. So the holy name actually is fully capable to fulfill the desires of the practitioner who is chanting the holy name. If a karmi is chanting the holy name, now what is the aspiration of karmi? Karmi's aspiration is that he gets some fruitive results. He's doing some work, he's doing some activity, and he expects there has to be some result of that activity, and he peacefully and nicely get back the result of that activity. So karmi is aspiring for fruitive result. Jnani is aspiring to become one with the Supreme. What is the aspiration of Jnani? To become merged with the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, to become one with the Brahma Jyoti. That is the aspiration of Jnani. So if you are a Karmi, if you are a Jnani, or if you are a Yogi, and what is the aspiration of a Yogi? To aspire for mystic perfections. Mystic perfections means siddhis. So there are multiple siddhis. Like the yogis may aspire for a siddhi where they can become lighter than the light. Huh? Uh, they become smaller than the smallest, or they become larger than the largest. Like that, there are multiple siddhis. So, and what is the aspiration of a devotee? Aspiration of the devotee is always to serve the Lord, seva. If you are a karmi, if you are a jnani, if you are a yogi, or if you are a bhakta, having different aspirations, holy name can achieve all perfection simply by chanting that holy names. If you do Nam Kirtan, the aspiration will be fulfilled. And that is what is being mentioned. It is being mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in that commentary, he writes of the three processes: hearing, chanting, and remembering. Chanting is the chief. Among different types of chanting, names, pastimes, qualities, chanting the names is supreme. So he's giving three processes, and in particular three different types of chanting. So what are the three processes? Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. So among Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam, chanting is the chief. So there are gradations among the various processes, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that chanting is chief. And yet, even among chanting, now we were also studying this uh, chanting of the holy name in the previous chapters, where we discussed there are different types of chanting. One is Nam Kirtan, then another one is Leela Kirtan, then another one is Guna Kirtan. Names of the holy names of the Lord, and the Leela of the Lord, and the qualities of the Lord. So even if there are different types of chanting, among all these different types of chanting, chanting the names is supreme. So this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning in his commentary to Bhakti Samrat Sindhu. We now look at the verse from Adi Puran and Padma Puran. So verse from Adi Puran says, here Lord Krishna is promising Arjun, by singing my names, one is in my constant association. Such devotee purchases me. By singing my name, one is in my constant association. So sometimes ISKCON devotees say, if you want to talk to the Lord, you simply do one thing. You start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And in order to make things interesting, they say that what this mantra means is, actually this is the telephone number of the Lord. So if simply you dial this number, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, then you are in the association of the Lord. You can talk to the Lord. That's what people say. And this is the essence of the verse from Adi Puran. By singing my names, one is in my constant association. Such devotee purchases me. So Lord is making very strong statement here in Adi Puran that such devotee who chants my name actually purchases me. मुझे खरीद लेता है. Huh? So it is quite strong. Then in Padma Puran, the reference says Hari Nam is constantly present on the lips of a person who has worshipped Vasudev for 1,000 births. So Harinam is constantly present on the lips of a person who has worshipped Vasudev for 1,000 births. Now somebody might challenge. So if he's already worshipping Vasudev, then why he is not liberated yet? Why he has to take birth again and again? So the answer is given by Srila Jiva Goswami in his commentary to this verse. And Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that the Lord actually increases his attraction for the Lord in every birth. And he does not give that liberation or that attraction to his lotus feet immediately, but he increases his attraction every time he worships the Lord. He increases that attraction. So this is verse number, I think, 230, 231, 232 probably. So let me just read that commentary for you. In 232, yeah. So in order to increase that person's eagerness for devotion, the Lord by his own will make that person take repeated birth. So just to increase his eagerness, the Lord does so. Okay. Sri Nam Samkirtan, more references coming. And this is reference from Padma Puran. And this appears as verse number 233 in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Is saying, this verse is saying, Krishna and his names are non-different. A very interesting verse. The verse says, Nam Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Suddho Nitya Mukto Bhin Abhinnatvam Nama Namino Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvam Nama Namino. Nam Chintamani Krishnash. Krishna's name fulfills all desires like Chintamani. So Chintamani is a stone. And what is the speciality of that stone? That speciality is that you desire anything in front of that stone, the stone is bound to fulfill that desire. So what is Lord Krishna's name? Lord Krishna's name is like that Chintamani. Krishna's name fulfills all desires like Chintamani. Then what it is? Chaitanya Ras Vigraha. Chaitanya. Chaitanya means it is not something an ordinary sound. It is a sound which is full of consciousness and rasa. Rasa Vigraha. Rasa Vigraha. It is the very form of Krishna, full of consciousness and rasa. So very form of Krishna means like we see the picture of Krishna in the pictures, in the movies, in videos, in temples, like we see some description of the form of the Lord. So holy name is actually the very form of the Lord. It is no different from the Lord. It is full of consciousness and it is full of rasa, full of mellow, full of taste, full of sweetness. Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto. Purna Shuddha means it is completely pure. There is not even a tinge of Lagpie or Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun. There is not even a tinge of any of these gunas. Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto. Nitya Mukto means it is eternally liberated. It has no connection with the material world. It is this sound which is coming in form of the holy name has nothing to relate with the material world. And then Abhinnatvam Nam Namino. Abhinnatvam means it is known different from Krishna. Abhinnatvam, non-different from Krishna. So someday, if you are not able to have darshan of the Lord in your temple, in the picture in your room, etc., etc., simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this sound that is coming out from your lotus lips actually is Lord Krishna only. That is the explanation from this verse. So the sound of Lord's name is non-different from Lord himself. Another reference from Padma Puran, it says, Ataha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyaihe sevan mukhehi jivvadau swayam eva svaratyada sevan mukhehi jivvadau swayam eva svaratyada. Ataha Shri Krishna Nam Adi. Krishna's names, forms, pastimes, etc. Adi means etc. Atah Shri Krishna Nam Adi. Nam is names, and then Adi includes forms, pastimes, and so on. Na bhaved grahyam indriyai. cannot be appreciated by material senses. So if we are taking the holy names, we cannot, our material senses cannot appreciate the potency of the holy names. That is what it means. Sevan mukhehi jivvado. When one is inclined to serve Krishna and accept his name, Sevan mukhehi jivvado. Jivva means tongue. So when someone does this seva of chanting the holy name from the tongue, then what happens is Swayam eva svuratyada. Krishna will spontaneously appear on the tongue of that person. So we are materially contaminated, our senses are materially contaminated. And if we chant the holy name of the Lord with these materially contaminated senses, we cannot appreciate the real potency of the holy name. However, at the same time, the same holy name actually is cure for this material disease. And when we chant the holy name of the Lord by a service attitude, by the attitude of seva, then what happens is, then ultimately swam eva swaratya ada. Swarati means very quickly, very fast. Krishna will spontaneously appear on the tongue of such person. So like that, there are several references given on the Sri Nam Samkirtan. And here in this picture, you can see how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityanand Prabhu, together with all many of his associates, uh, would form a Kirtan party, and then they will walk across the streets of the city singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Like that, they will sing this Mahamantra with kartals, with mridanga drums, with flags, with banners, and so on and so forth. So this is a typical way a Kirtan party is organized. And I'm not sure if any one of you have got the experience of viewing these Kirtan parties. So devotees who are living in big cities where there is a dedicated ISKCON temple, many times you might see that the devotees do some Nagar Sankirtan. They will keep assemble many devotees. They will have mridanga, they will have gongs, they will have cymbals, and with flags and other nice paraphernalia. They will nicely make a procession and chant the holy names of the Lord. So when we do so, we are not only benefiting ourselves by chanting the holy names, but we also give the other living entities. The other living entities could be other people walking on the street, seeing the Sankirtan from the top of their balcony on the street, or maybe even birds sitting on the tree, dogs loitering around on the street, and so on. So every living entity in the ears of whom, when the holy names, holy sound of the Lord enters, that has the potency to liberate the other person. So this is the example of how Sankirtan party would get organized by Shriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well as Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Coming to the final limb of the 64 limbs of Sadhan Bhakti, Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. It is Sri Mathura Mandale Sthitihi. Again, the translation is residing in Mathura. References are given from Padma Puran. It says that when one resides in Mathura, Mathura Nagari bestows the benediction of bhakti on one such person. And it has been elaborated in this verse from Padma Puran. It says, Mukti is the greatest result obtained at other holy places. But bhakti can be attained at Mathura even by staying there for just one day or few seconds. Mathura bestows dharma, artha, kam to those who have material desires, liberation to those who want it, and bhakti to those who desire bhakti. Mathura is the most auspicious and greater than Vaikuntha. So, when we are residing in Mathura, then the chances that the benediction we get is that we get the Uttama Bhakti of the Lord Himself. And if we are residing at other holy places, then the best benediction as per Padma Puran, this verse is Mukti. So, although Mathura bestows dharma, artha, kam to those who have material desires, and liberation to those who want liberation, but it desires it bestows bhakti to those who desire bhakti. Like that, the glorification of Mathura has been done. It is being mentioned that because of this, Mathura is most auspicious. It has the potential to give you the highest possible result in transcendental discussion. And it is greater than Vaikuntha planet. So with this, we are now coming to an end of chapter number 12 of Nectar of Devotion. And as you can see, we have covered the 64 limbs of bhakti, starting from the first limb, uh, and right to the next limb, which is Sri Mathura Mandale Sthitihi. Now we are moving to the next chapter, and the next chapter is titled as 5 Potent Forms of Bhakti. And what Srila Rupa Goswami is going to do in these 5 potent forms of bhakti, while narrating these 5 potent forms of bhakti, in the list of all the 64 limbs, Srila Rupa Goswami will pick up 5 most important limbs and will present it to you, the student, the reader of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Nectar of Devotion, and he would give an emphasis, he would lay an stress that even if you are not able to fulfill the other limbs of bhakti, I would like to mention that these 5 are the topmost. So if you really want quick results, if you really want very nice results when you practice bhakti, just follow in these 5 limbs and you will be very well situated in your own devotional life. It is very similar to the teacher who's teaching in schools to the students in the schools. And while teaching, the teacher will say that, okay, although there are maybe 20 chapters in your book, but I would recommend you study these 6-7 chapters very quick, very nicely, because in the examination the questions are most likely to come from these 6-7 chapters. Similarly, Rup Goswami is also giving an emphasis on the limbs of bhakti, and he has chosen which limbs? He has chosen the last 5 limbs. We just now finished discussion on these limbs. And what are these? These are Sri Murti Seva, relishing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Bhakt Sangha, Nam Sankirtan, and Mathura Vas. So residing in Mathura, chanting the holy names of the Lord, taking association of devotees, and reciting Bhagavat, and then doing service to the Sri Vigraha, Sri Murti of the Lord. Those are the last 5 items. And what is the verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is saying? So this verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the 238th verse in the second chapter of the first wave, it says, this verse is compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. This is not coming from any scripture. It is saying the last 5 items have inconceivable and astonishing power. What to speak of having faith in these items? Even if there is a small attachment with these items, persons who are devoid of offenses can attain the level of bhav. Can attain the level of bhav. Now, what is bhav? Bhav means ecstatic love. Ecstatic love. So when we feel love for the Lord, we feel a happiness, a sense of happiness. And when the degree of that happiness is just no less than ecstasy, so ecstasy is a very superior level of happiness. That is known as bhav. So we are going to study about bhav bhakti little later in the course. But what it is saying is that these last 5 items, not only if somebody has a very strong faith in any of these 5 items, that is certainly very good. But even somebody does not have a very strong faith, even a small attachment to these 5 items, then the person can potentially attain a level of bhav bhakti he can attain. And these 5 items I already discussed with you. Sri Murti Seva, relishing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Katha, Sangha, Nam Sankirtan, and Mathuravas. Now, what Srila Rupa Goswami will do is he will pick up, he will himself write a verse glorifying each of these items. So, starting from Sri Murti Seva and then moving on to relishing Bhagavatam till Mathuravas. All these verses are not taken from any scriptures, but these verses are coming from the pen, the lips of Sri Rup Goswami himself. Here, Sri Murti Seva or Sri Murti Darshan, power of seeing Lord Krishna's deity. Here it's saying, Smiram Bhangi Traya Parichitam Sachi Vistirna Drishtim Vamshi Nyatadhara Kishalayam Ujwalam Chandra Kena Govindakhyam Haritanum Itaha Keshi Tirthopakanthe Ma Prekshistas Tava Yadi Sakhe Bandhu Sangestis Rangaha. So this Sanskrit verse has been composed by Srila Rupa Goswami, and it is glorifying the power of seeing Lord Krishna's deity in a very stylish way, in a very, I would say, tasteful way. And how he's saying, with a slight smile on his lips, standing in a threefold bending form. Bhangi Traya. Bhangi means bending. Traya means at three locations. So you might have seen Lord Krishna's form. He would be holding this fluid, and then he will be having one bend on the shoulder, one bend on the neck, and one bend on the leg. So this is known as three bhangi form, bending in the three locations. So threefold bending form. So he is having a smile on his lips, standing in a threefold bending form, with his eyes glancing everywhere crookedly. Shachi Vistirna Drishtim. The Drishtim means visually glancing here and there. Then what are the other symptoms? Vamshi Nyastadhara Kishalayam Ujvalam Chandrakena. Vamshi means the fluid. Nyasta Adhara means adhar means lips. So with a fluid placed on his red lower lip. Red lower lip means we have two lips, upper lip and lower lip. On the lower lip, the fluid is placed like a tender bud, with a shining peacock feather, with his form illuminated by moonlight. Now imagine this form of Lord Krishna in a threefold bending form, with a slight smile on his lips and his eyes glancing around everywhere, with a fluid nicely located on his lower lip, and then with a shining peacock feather, but the surrounding is like a moonlight. It is night, but moonlight is there, uh, being falling on the form of Lord Krishna. And where is this happening? This whole thing is happening at where Lord Govinda is standing at Keshi Tirth. Keshi Tirth is, there is a Keshi Ghat in Vrindavan, and on that ghat, river Yamuna is flowing. So Lord Govinda is standing on Keshi Tirth on the banks of Yamuna. So that is the picture of Lord Krishna, a very beautiful, a very ornamental, very tasteful picture Srila Rupa Goswami is painting here before the reader. And then he does something very nice. He does something very, I would say, astonishing. Then he writes this last line. He says, "Oh friend, please don't see him." Now, first of all, he's describing Lord Krishna as such a beautiful form, with choicest of poetry here. And then in the last line, he's appealing to the friend, saying, "Oh friend, please don't see him. If you desire to enjoy with your friends and relatives in this world." So if you still want to desire enjoying with your friends, relatives, and other people of this world, then just please don't see this form of Krishna. Because if you see this form of Krishna, then all your attraction for your own friends, relatives will be gone. Now, this is a very tasteful way of bringing out the message. So here you will see that the author wants to glorify Lord Krishna. But instead of glorifying Krishna, he is actually criticizing Krishna. He is actually criticizing seeing the form of Krishna. On the contrary, he is actually glorifying association with friends and relatives in this world. So this is a very stylish way of presenting the message. And uh, the next verse, which is about, I would go to the next verse, 5 potent form of bhakti, the power of hearing Bhagavatam. So in the next verse also, you would see a similar technique has been used by Srila Rupa Goswami. But before we go to the next verse, let us see what Srila Prabhupada has to say on the commentary in Nectar of Devotion about this particular verse. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, the purport of this verse is that if someone becomes attached to the Sri Murti or deity of Krishna by worshipping at home, then he will forget his relationships of so-called friendship, love, and society. Thus, it is the duty of every householder to install deities of the Lord at home and to begin the process of worshipping along with all of his family members. This will save everyone from such unwanted activities as going to clubs, cinemas, dancing parties, smoking, drinking, etc. All such nonsense will be forgotten if one stresses the worship of the deities at home. So here you can see how Srila Prabhupada is encouraging, and he's giving so many benefits. If one starts to worship the deities at home, then automatically all these unwanted habits like going to clubs, cinema, dancing parties, smoking, drinking, all this nonsense will be gone. And slowly and gradually we become so attached to the deity that our love for the deity actually gradually increases uh, uh, gra- uh, as the time passes by. So why I put this specific quotation from Srila Prabhupada, because personally I have seen the benefit of deity worship at home. Generally what the deity worship does to us is it brings a very focused approach in our own Krishna consciousness. So when there are deities at home, all our activities at home, right from the morning till we go to the bed, revolve around remembering Krishna at regular intervals. Now, let me tell you how it happens. When you wake up in the morning, when you take bath, then when the deities are there, you will do some arti, you will make some bhoga offering to the Lord. So that's how the day starts. So day starts on a very auspicious note. Little later during the day, if the husband has gone to the office, then wife uh, who is staying at home might be preparing some food stuff. So in the afternoon she will offer the foodstuffs to the deities. Then this is another occasion where the wife actually remembers the Lord. When the husband comes back from the office to the home, uh, the husband might pay obeisances when he would see the deity. So the moment you see the deity, you will pay obeisances when you enter the house. In the night, in the evening, you might perform the evening arti of the Lord. And in the dinner time, you will not only make some bhoga offering, but also before retiring to bed, you will also clean up the altar. You will take out the flowers and put them into another container, and then by ringing the bell you will probably do the shayan arti, or maybe request the Lord to go to sleep. So like that, the whole day, right from the morning till the night before you retire, uh, every activity is focused around the deity worship or deity that you have installed in your Lord in your home. It is not necessary that you must purchase a particular murti from the market. Even if you have pictures of the Lord, that is also considered as the deity worship. So like that, you can also try to uh, bring this deity worship in your own life, uh, and slowly and gradually we can teach you how to do deity worship. At least the basic level of deity worship you can learn uh, from us also, and or otherwise also you can learn. Many things are already available on internet, so from internet also you can learn. Now the second one is the power of hearing Bhagavatam. Among the 5 ones we have just discussed, which one we have discussed? Power of seeing Lord Krishna's deity. So in 240th verse, power of hearing Bhagavatam is mentioned. And as I was mentioning, the technique used is the same as was used in the previous verse. Here, "O idiots, how unfortunate you are. I think that you must have been hearing all the syllables one by one of the verses of 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, because your ears are not denouncing the most auspicious goals of dharma, artha, and kam, and even decrying the fourth goal of impersonal liberation, which is most blissful." So again, you will see that in this verse also, where Srimad Bhagavatam has to be glorified, what is being glorified? The subject that is being glorified here is dharma, artha, and kam, and moksha, impersonal liberation. So here it is being said, the author is saying, "Oh idiots, how unfortunate you are. I think you must have been hearing all the syllables one by one of the verses of 10th canto of Bhagavatam. That is why you are not denouncing the most auspicious goals of dharma, artha, and kama, and moksha. So you are still not appreciating dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Why? You must certainly have heard about the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So like that, Srila Rup Goswami is using this technique, which is actually known as Vyaj Stuti. So you can see here in the above two verses, 239 and 240, the subjects are praised by the use of extreme criticism. So here in this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam is being criticized. In the previous verse, the darshan of Supreme Lord Krishna in Tribhangi form, that is being criticized. But actually, the author is appreciating these subject matters. So to praise an object by criticizing it is an ornament, is an alankar. It is known as Vyaj Stuti, that is indirect eulogy. So you can see how Srila Rupa Goswami is uh, bringing out the subject matter by tastefully writing these verses. Then next comes the power of seeing a devotee. Ever since I saw a person whose body was washed with his own tears, whose hairs were standing on end, and who stumbled around with a joyous heart, while quivering to the extreme, my mind has become so attached to Krishna that I have no attachment to my family. So here the power of seeing a devotee. Now how this has been glorified, the devotees have been glorified, that when the devotee performs this devotional service, bhakti, then at an advanced stage when I'm saying advanced stage of bhava, or advanced stage, or the most advanced stage of prema, then the the emotion in the heart for the love of the Lord is so strong that it even start to manifest in the body. And how does it manifest in the body? Uh, Tears flow. Then the hair that are there on the body, they stand on their end, like we call romanch. Romanch means when the hair sometimes stand on the ends, that is called romanch. In Hindi we call it pulak. Pulak. And we have a word also, like we call pulakit. Pulakit means when you are so joyous that the hair on the body actually stand on their end. And then one who stumbles around with a joyous heart. So he's so joyful in his heart that he's just wandering around here and there with joy in that heart. And then while quivering to the extreme, quivering means even there is shaking in the body. So these are some symptoms that are being mentioned here in a very advanced devotee. So ever since I saw a person whose body was washed with his own tears, whose hairs were standing on end, and who stumbled around with a joyous heart while quivering to the extreme, my mind has become so attached to Krishna that I have no attachment to my family. So this is the power of seeing a devotee. So when you see a person with such a pure consciousness, just by seeing that a person with such a pure consciousness, it also affects our own heart. It also has an impact on the impurities of our own heart. The impurities tend to melt away. So that is the power of seeing a devotee is being mentioned here. The power of chanting. Ever since I have heard Narad Muni singing the names of Krishna, I am feeling Lord's presence, and my heart has become blissful with prem and bereft of all attachment for material enjoyment. So here example of Narad Muni is being given here. So ever since I have heard his singing, and my heart has completely become blissful with prem. Now here the name of Narad Muni being mentioned in the verse by Srila Rupa Goswami is Vainika. Vainika. Vainika word comes from Veena, which is the musical instrument that Narad Muni plays. So Vainika refers to Narad who plays Veena. By not naming him directly, what Srila Rupa Goswami is trying to emphasize here is all those devotees of a similar nature are being indicated here. So here in this verse, directly the name of Lord Narad Muni is not mentioned, but he is mentioned indirectly as Vainika. And Rupa Goswami or Jeev Goswami in his commentary is saying that since the name is not mentioned directly, what it means is that all those devotees who have a similar nature, who are singing the Lord name with lot of feeling, lot of presence of the Lord in their heart, and so on. uh, so when I am hearing that kind of chanting, my heart becomes blissful with prem. So that is the power of chanting. So even if you try to hear chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra from the recordings of Srila Prabhupada, you will possibly experience the purity of a pure devotee coming through the sound vibration, even though that sound vibration is a recorded vibration. Even then, you can experience the kind of uh, inner beauty that Prabhupada would have in his personality. uh, that would be experienced in his own chanting, not even his chanting, even if you hear his classes, even if you hear the bhajans that he has sung. So like that, if the devotee has purity in the heart, that is uh, very easily manifested, very easily possible to see or sense or experience when it comes out from the lips of that devotee. So that is the power of chanting. Now coming to the last one, the power of residing in Mathura Mandal. Lord Shyam Sundar stands by the banks of Yamuna amid the kadamba trees with chirping birds and buzzing bees. On these impressions are always giving me transcendental realization of beauty and bliss. So this is description of Mathura Mandal. Hmm. So Mathura Mandal, there is Yamuna river. There are a lot of kadamba trees. Birds are chirping, bees are buzzing. So this is a description of Mathura as being given. And when you go to Mathura, all these impressions, when you gather while you are in the Mathura Mandal, that potentially can give you transcendental realization of beauty and bliss. So like that, Srila Rupa Goswami has given his own opinion about these last five very potent forms of devotional service, bhakti. And in the next verse, in the 44th verse, 244th verse, Srila Rupa Goswami makes one very important statement. The inconceivable power of these extraordinary five angas is such that it will manifest the state of bhav and its object Krishna at the same time. So, if we are sincerely holding and practicing even one limb of out of these five limbs, then the potential of one of these five limbs is that one can attain the state of bhav. Bhav means ecstatic love, a very advanced stage in devotional service. And at the same time, Lord Krishna, where in your own heart you will have bhav, at the same time, Lord Krishna at the same time. So that is the inconceivable. Inconceivable means you cannot conceive it. You cannot really uh, fathom the power of these limbs using your ordinary or using our ordinary intelligence. By logic, by intelligence, it is not possible to conceive. That is why it is mentioned the inconceivable power of these extraordinary 5 angas is such that it will manifest the state of bhav and its object, Lord Krishna, at the same time. And in order to emphasize this point, Srila Prabhupada has dedicated one full paragraph where he is explaining this particular item from Bhakti Samrat Sindhu in his book Nectar of Devotion. He's saying there is no overestimation in these statements about bhakti. Some devotees have had immediate results, although may not be possible for all. So it may be possible that we, yourself, I, myself, you, etc., etc., may not experience the similar kind of results immediately. But there have been some devotees in the history who have had immediate results. They went to Mathura, or they had the darshan of the Lord, or they associated with some devotee, or they chanted the holy name of the Lord, and so on. So some devotee, by doing that activity, they actually understood, they actually experienced bhav. And the examples given are 4 Kumaras and Bilva Mangal Thakur. So Chatush Kumar example I had given in the previous class also. When Chatush Kumar actually came in contact with Lord Vishnu, so when they saw, when the smell or the fragrance of the tulasi leaves entered into the nostrils of these Chatush Kumar, they immediately became devotees. They immediately developed lot of attraction towards the Supreme Lord. Before that, they were Gyanis. They were only aspiring for impersonal Brahman. Similarly, Bilva Mangal Thakur. So Bilva Mangal Thakur is a Vaishnav acharya in our tradition. And this Bilva Mangal Thakur had a lot of attraction towards a prostitute. And his attraction was so great, so severe, so deep, that even one day when there was flood in the river, when there was raining very heavily, this Bilva Mangal Thakur actually crossed that flooded river and went to the house of this prostitute, and he could not even enter into the house of the prostitute through the main gate. There was a serpent which was hanging on the building. He climbed the building using that serpent as a rope, and then actually managed to get entry into the house of that prostitute. And when the prostitute came to know about this much endeavor that Bilva Mangal Thakur had made, then she remarked, say, you have made so much endeavor to come to me. That prostitute actually was devotee of Lord Krishna. So that prostitute says, you have made so much endeavor to come to me. If you would make even a slight endeavor like that towards Lord Krishna, who is there on my altar, then your life will be successful. And then Bilva Mangal Thakur heard those statements, looked at that deity, and his heart was immediately transformed. He immediately left that place and actually perfected his life. And now we are discussing this because Bilva Mangal Thakur, his poetry, his life actually is a very exemplary devotee. And so the point is that even a small association with a devotee can actually ignite that bhav, can ignite that ecstatic love for the Lord in our hearts. So we need to really understand how important these limbs are, these 5 limbs. These descriptions must be taken as they are in order to divert our attention from the fleeting material beauty to the eternal beauty of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is saying that don't think this is an overestimation. Understand that these descriptions actually are possible and have been there in some devotees in the past. Now coming, I think, to the last slide of the class today. The main result of practicing the angas of sadhan bhakti. What are these? In some of the verses quoted from the scriptures, material results are attributed to the angas for attracting person possessing material consciousness. However, the main result of these angas is rati. Rati means attraction, or bhav. Bhav means ecstatic love. Rati means spontaneous attraction. Bhav actually means spontaneous love or ecstatic love. So here in this verse, what is being mentioned here is that sometime in the scriptures you will find that these limbs of bhakti, like we have discussed just now, the 5 limbs of bhakti, they are being described. And while describing those limbs, the benefit mentioned is material in nature, that you will get wealth, you will get fame, you will become immortal, etc., etc. But these are not the actual or the main result of these kind of limbs. The main result of these angas actually is rati or bhav. So with that, we conclude our class today. So we have today finished the remaining portion of chapter number 12, and we have also studied chapter number 13 and try to understand the importance of the 5 last limbs in the list of 64 limbs of bhakti, and how they are very, very potent. Even if you are holding on to one limb, what to speak of all the 5 limbs? Certainly the Lord promises, or Srila Rupa Goswami promises, that you potentially can achieve ecstatic love of Lord in your heart. So with that, I would put the class to rest for today. All glories to the Nectar of Devotion, all glories to Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, all glories to Srila Rupa Goswami, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Any remarks, comments, questions? We can discuss now. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Dandavat.
Dandavat Prabhu.
मैं इतना अच्छा लगा. Always my guru's classes are perfect. पर आज तो बड़ा मजा आया क्योंकि मेरे को आपके पिताश्री की याद आती रही. क्योंकि उनके घर में गीता का सारा प्रावधान था, एटमॉस्फेयर था, तो वो आपको मिला और आप हमारे गुरु बन गए. तो ये जो आपने आज
हमारे गुरु तो प्रभुपाद जी हैं. मैं तो सिर्फ एक पोस्टमैन का काम कर रहा हूँ.
वो देखिए, वो आप अपनी जगह पर जो मर्जी कहें, पर मेरा जो भाव है मैं तो वो बोलूंगा ना भाई. मैंने तो नहीं देखा प्रभुपाद जी को, मैंने तो केशव जी को देखा है और केशव के पिताश्री को देखा है, और अभी देख लिया गुरुवाणी को भी देख लिया है कि भाई उनको भी देखो. अभी क्या आप गए वृंदावन और उनको भी उपाधि मिल गई. पिताश्री का आपके ऊपर सारा हुआ और आपने अपनी कर्म पानी का, अपने हम संगने का उसको दे दिया. अभी आई एम श्योर आप दोनों बच्चों को दोगे और हम सबको तो दे ही रहे हैं आप. रियली ये पांचों लिंग तो सारे लिंग अच्छे हैं. सभी आपने बताया, मैं तो वो मन में घर कर गया है जो आपने 2-3 क्लास पहले बताया था. रूप, गुण, दायित्व, सेवा. तो ये चारों याद रह जाए तो बहुत है. और आज जो आपने और कृतज्ञ कर दिया कि ये बता के कि उनको मन में रख लो तो काफी
जी.
बिना डायटी के भी अगर मन में भी अगर प्रश्न बस गए हैं तो जरूरत नहीं है डायटी की भी
जी.
तो वो पर्सनली एक्सपीरियंस करता रहता हूँ कई बार
जी.
एंड वो भी गुरुओं की कृपा है, आप जैसे गुरुओं की. एंड ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्रील प्रभुपाद जी, बट फ्रॉम माय साइड ऑल ग्लोरीज टू माय गुरु केशव जी.
चलिए प्रभु जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आई एम वेरी हैप्पी दैट आई एम able to serve you in a little way. Thank you very much. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So any other comments, questions? I hope the class was clear. So happy to see we have completed. Yes Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, class was very good. Prabhuji, there were 1 or 2 questions.
हाँ जी, बताइए.
Sir, regarding Mathura Vas, should it be actual or physical, or it can be otherwise also?
Yeah, so like you see as being discussed in these verses, if you are possible to make a visit to Mathura in a physical sense, that is the best. But anywhere where the names, forms, qualities are being discussed about the Lord, that place actually you can also consider as Mathura or Vrindavan.
Residing Mathura से प्रभुजी मतलब.
हाँ, तो residing Mathura का मतलब ये है, यहाँ पर encouragement इस बात को दिया गया है कि at least we should make one visit to a holy place like Mathura, Vrindavan, or maybe Dwarka or other holy places of the Lord at least once in a year or or I would say regularly keep on visiting these places to once again rejuvenate our devotional juices. So,
Okay.
and when we go to these places, the idea is not to go to the marketplace or go to the chaat pakodi place and so on, but to actually find some good devotee association where we can hear Krishna Katha, where we can hear the holy names of the Lord. So that is the particular mood when we go when we visit these holy places.
प्रभु जी, चैतन्य महाप्रभु ने जो अपने आखिर के 18 साल थे वो पुरी में रहना क्यों चूज किया इन कंपैरिजन टू मथुरा?
अब देखिए, when he spent his last 18 years in Jagannath Puri, although it may appear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may not have preached, may not have propagated the holy names of the Lord much externally, it may appear like that. But while he was staying in Jagannath Puri, he did very important service. He gave his personal association to his associates. He gave his own personal association to his associates. And in devotee's life, this personal association of somebody whom you are really looking forward to, whom you are really actually looking forward to as role models, that is very, very important. And that could be something like life defining also sometimes. So like we also have taken initiation from our respective gurus, our spiritual masters. But only very few of us are able to get some close, intimate, personal association and guidance of our gurus. Yeah. So why it is so? Because it is not easy to get association of our own uh, spiritual masters and so on. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent these last 18 years in Jagannath Puri in kind of isolation, he gave a lot of his personal association, which became a kind of a rejuvenating factor in many of his associates, who ultimately spread the Hare Krishna Sankirtan movement all over the country and now all over the world. Yeah.
Right.
So that was the contribution he made.
एक क्वेश्चन और है प्रभु जी, कैन ए
Yes.
डिवोटी ऑफ लॉर्ड कृष्णा
हाँ जी.
कैन बी शी बी ए प्रोस्टिट्यूट?
Well, devotion, as I said, devotional service is independent. And then even if somebody who's even more, like we have discussed in our verses, even a Chandala can be a devotee. What it means is, we don't know in what circumstances that lady became a prostitute. And in order to satisfy the bodily needs of food, shelter, etc., and there might not have been any other opportunity for her, she might have taken to prostitution. But that doesn't stop that lady to take to devotional service. And when she's taken to devotional service, all those tendencies of maybe low grade nature like prostitution or maybe meat eating, etc., etc., that might even go away. So that way, in that sense, anyone or everyone can become a devotee of the Lord, and devotional service can do miracles to the life of these devotees.
Right, Prabhu. Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Yes.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी.
Yes, Ishwar Prabhu ji, thank you very much. Yes.
ये बहुत अच्छी क्लास थी और there has been lot of hammering on your part, and we are certainly gradually realizing bit by bit.
Okay.
This evening, before coming to the class, I was sitting with a friend who has been living in Palwal town of Haryana, which is close to Mathura. Compared to Rohtak, and in his childhood he used to go to those places, and I was just discussing that we should go and see Mathura. You must have seen Mathura. So he said, yes, I saw Mathura, but it was a very, very dirty place, both Mathura and Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is today. Then I said, if ISKCON is there, then it cannot be a dirty or gandagi. So they must have improved it. So
Yeah.
is there a real difference between the original Mathura, where the original temples are, or ISKCON has sort of improved things to look really
Yeah.
salubrious? So
Yeah. Yeah.
what
So
exactly is today, since
so
you have used it very recently?
so Mathura I have not visited in recent times, but I have just been to Vrindavan. And you would see that
Okay.
because of the modern development, etc., it has also had its own impact on the city of Vrindavan. But still, I will tell you one or two instances what Mathura or Vrindavan would mean. So when you go to Mathura and Vrindavan, you try to understand Mathura and Vrindavan through the devotees who are living there. So
Right.
one night when I was returning from a temple in Vrindavan, I had a garland. So when I had visited the temple, the pujari gave me a garland, and that garland I was wearing. And while
Okay.
returning it to my dharamshala where I was staying, that garland
Right.
was with me, and I had hired a rickshaw puller, a rickshawala,
Right.
and I was coming from that temple. Probably it was Bihariji Mandir or maybe other temple, other famous temple there in Vrindavan. And that rickshawala was dropping me to my destination. And when I
Ji.
paid the rickshawala asked me, "Sir, can you please give me that garland?"
Okay. Okay.
Now you can understand,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
even a small person of a very, I mean, insignificant social status like a rickshaw puller, uh,
Right.
had he could have asked me something more to me. He could have asked me some additional 10 rupees or 15 rupees, but
Quite.
the
Quite.
the way he requested me that garland,
Okay.
that is actually showing the devotion he had for the Lord.
Right. Quite right.
Isn't it? So
Yes.
when you go to Vrindavan, don't see Vrindavan or don't see the dirty drainages or maybe the cows or the monkeys or the uh, other maybe so-called dirty places or dirty things there. Just try to understand Vrindavan by the devotees residing there. You will see that vibrating devotion all around. The
Right.
moment you can see, the moment we stride when we get an understanding of devotional vibrations, you will
Right.
start to feel those devotional vibrations when you are coming in contact with such atmosphere.
Yes. Yes.
So
It
like
should
that you
be
will see.
a devotional view.
Yeah,
It should. Yes. I can follow that. Yes. Yes. We
right.
should go with something different. We want to see something different. Yes. That's
Yes,
true.
yes. Now everywhere you go in Vrindavan, there is some aarti going on. There is some ghanta being
Right.
dinging and donging like that. And even if you go and do the purchase in the market, they will all speak Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe. Even the shopkeepers will greet you with folded hands like that. So I'm not saying that it is Vaikuntha like you would expect in the spiritual world, but
Right.
you can feel the difference.
That's right.
You can feel the difference. So so as I mentioned, like I was giving an invitation to all the devotees when this Vrindavan Kartik Parikrama was being organized by my own spiritual master. So these events are organized mainly to enhance this kind of experience.
Right.
So
Right.
this year I had been twice to Vrindavan. Once I had been to that Vyas Puja ceremony,
Right.
and this time in the Kartik month, Vyas Puja ceremony had its own impact on my own consciousness. It was organized very nicely, and maybe it was not organized in a very grand manner, but the kind of effort, specifically the Russian devotees, took to
Okay.
glorify our Guru or His Holiness Indradumna Swami. They took so much effort to prepare their dances, their songs, their offerings, and so on. You would really feel very much attracted. You will feel very much enthusiastic and inspired by those kind of offerings.
Quite right.
So, and a very sweet exchange of love between a spiritual master and the disciple. And when you see that, it which is devoid of any selfishness, devoid of any ulterior motive, you tend to think that, oh, is it possible to have that kind of relationship also in this world? Because in this world, generally, when we come across other people, they are generally trying to take some advantage from you. Either they want some money from you, they want some benefit from you, they want some favor from you. But here it is purely glorification of the disciple for the spiritual master, and a genuine concern from the spiritual master for the disciple. So that's what you will see. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you, Ji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you for
Mataji. Thank you very much.
enlightening us with so much of, devotional thing. Now when you go to Vrindavan, it will be I will look at Vrindavan from a different
Yes.
perspective. Yes.
Yeah, you should.
But
We should look.
definitely,
Yeah. Yes, please.
definitely you will feel the difference if you go to Vrindavan. You can feel the energy, you totally, you feel like you are in a different world altogether. Just
Correct.
forget about the surroundings and all that, but you really
Right.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Right.
Especially the ISKCON temple is really,
Correct.
really.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you,
then.
Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for such
Thank
nice
you.
discussions and such encouraging comments. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.